It's 3:03. Came in a little bit early. Let's see. Let's get this situated. Okay. Still 3:03. Wow, that seemed like 24 seconds, 25, 26. Came in early. I watched the last one back, and I decided that if I'm going to switch back and forth between Facebook and YouTube when I'm in jail, if I'm only going to use YouTube when, Facebook has forsaken me and unceremoniously pitched me in the poke, then I'm going to have to find ways to influence Facebook or influence YouTube in the same way I try to influence Facebook. And on Facebook, I've got the keyboard and I can type things out and make different posts and share memes. But on here, you make videos. I have no text, really. I just have my personality and my silver tongue and my inspiration. It is officially 3:05, and your Loonie Liberal Power Hour has started with your host, Lance Richards. And the theme today, or in the second Loonie Liberal Power Hour of the day, is something. It's a word. I watched back my first one, and it's a word that was strangely not spoken by me. And it's important to where we find ourselves now. Let's go back to the first episode of your Loonie Liberal Power Hour with your host, Lance Richards, earlier today. If you missed it, we were talking about truths that be held self-evident. We talked about conspiracy theories. We talked about all kinds of shit. And I think that's what we need to do. But I neglected to mention a very important word. I said it in a group, logic and reason. But I never said it alone. And logic goes without saying. But reason is very important. I think the theme, we really need to come to terms and get our brains wrapped around the words themselves, I suppose. What are we talking about when we're asking you to be reasonable? What are we talking about when we're asking you to be logical? What does reasonable mean? Is it reasonable for you to believe that you know what God wants? Is that a reasonable thing for you to assume? Of all the people in all the world, in all of history, you're the one person that completely understands what an all-knowing being knows and wants and how things are supposed to go. It's like a little kid. A kid wants to eat until their belly is sick, right? Is that a reasonable thing to do? No, children aren't always reasonable, but shouldn't adults try to be reasonable? Shouldn't we endeavor to do what seems reasonable? I don't know. Let's do a little something that I would do right now, just to remind myself of the things I already know. Reason. A reason explains why you do something. Reason usually has to do with thought and logic as opposed to emotion. If people think you show good reason or are reasonable, it means you think things through. If people think you have good reason for doing something, it means you have a motive that makes sense. So you see what reason means now is that you're actually thinking these through. You're not using your emotions to figure this out. You're not, you know, reason is not all filled up in emotions and how you feel. Reason is thought about, figured out what makes most sense. Does it make sense to eat candy bars until you're sick to the stomach? No, it's not reasonable. Is it reasonable for you to believe that somehow of all the people that it's all ever been that has ever existed ever, you're the one person that knows exactly what God wants? Is that reasonable? Is it reasonable for you to tell Colin Kaepernick that he can't kneel for the flag and make a stand by kneeling and saying, no, man, I'm not going to stand up for a flag that allows my fellow black men to be murdered in the streets? Is that unreasonable? I don't think so. Is it reasonable for you to tell him he can't do it? It's absolutely not reasonable. It's not reasonable. You don't get to tell Colin Kaepernick what he can and can't do in this country. Ever. Ever. It's not reasonable for you to do that. Reason. It gets forgotten a lot. So a lot of times I'm not reasonable. I can't be real reasonable with somebody who is being ignorant, who is being willfully ignorant, pridefully stupid. It's hard for me to be reasonable with these people because they don't understand what reason is. So they're not playing fair. So we need to get people's heads wrapped around what's reasonable. Okay? Now, is it reasonable for a society to say that you can't tell people what God they have to worship? You have freedom of and from religion. Is that a reasonable thing to ask of a society and of people? Yeah, I think it is. Pretty reasonable. Pretty logical, actually. Yeah, you're allowed to believe whatever God you want, but you can't make nobody else believe it. It's reasonable. Is it reasonable for everyone to be able to hear whatever they want to hear? Should we reasonably allow everyone to soak up as much knowledge and information as they possibly can? Yes, we should. That's reasonable. By the same virtue, is it reasonable that we should hold people accountable for what they believe and what they think and what they say and what they try to do? Yeah, that's reasonable too. Is it going to be hard to find balance between these two things? Of course it is. Of course it is. Because it's in people's nature to take advantage of certain things, right? We are a fragile beast. We're not always perfect. We're not always fair. We're not always honest. We're not always reasonable. Sometimes it's hard to be reasonable. They talk about reasonable cause. Is it reasonable to pull somebody over because they're black? Is that a reasonable thing to do? Should that be fair? See, these are the things that we have to break down these things. I spew off a big string of things that I fight for: honesty, fairness, integrity, honor, justice, truth, logic, reason, all these things that I'm fighting for, that I want to fight for, that we should all want to fight for. I string all these things off, but what do they really mean? Do people really know what they mean? What is logic? What is a logical thing to say? It goes together. Okay? So we put these things together. You need oxygen to live. Oxygen sustains life. Oxygen is important. These are logical statements that lead to truth. 2 plus 2 equals 4. If you have 2 and you put 2 more together, you get 4. These are logical things to say. How do we build on that? This is what we got to get back to. Understanding the words that are coming out of your mouth. What is justice? Is it just to have a trial without witnesses, without testimony? Is that justice to you? Justice is an ideal that we hold high. We fight for justice, right? Truth, justice, and the American way, right? So what is justice? What's fair? You tell me. Is it fair that they could put their knee in the back of that guy's neck and kill him in the middle of the street? Was that fair? Was that just? Furthermore, was it fair or just that they were getting away with it? No. Was it just or fair that McConnell and Trump refused to have a fair trial in our Congress? They just decided to throw justice out the window in the biggest court in the land, where shit gets taken care of, our most sacred place in America, where laws are made, where shit gets done, where truth is found, where perfection is tried to be attained. Was it just that you just threw justice out the window? Didn't even make him be held accountable? Didn't even allow us to petition our government and our authority? How about when you didn't allow us to peacefully assemble? Was that fair or honest or just? When you try to make America a Christian nation, just like they force the people in the desert to believe Muslim, believe Christianity, believe Judaism. They impose their religious ideals on people, but you think that's okay to do in America, huh? You're allowed to impose your Christian beliefs on everybody else. That makes you no different from the Muslims who try to do that elsewhere and here. You don't see how that's similar? Fair, honest, just, reasonable, logical? Am I missing something? See, We have to apply these words. We have to apply these notions. We have to apply these facts and truth that we have at our disposal. What do these things mean? What is integrity? What is integrity? You take an oath to defend the Constitution, but yet you spit on it by not even allowing a trial in our Congress. You don't allow us to hold our authority accountable. You use your power to subvert the will of the people. And that's just, and that's fair, and that's patriotic in America. Let's establish patriotism. You want to talk about how great of an American is? Is that what a great American does? Is it fair and reasonable to establish undesirables in America, to make us hate immigrants and make us hate Mexicans, make us hate single moms who need an abortion, make us hate everybody that isn't white, Christian, Catholic, nationalists, conservative? Well, not Catholic, because I'm Catholic, so don't start hating on the Catholics. That could have been funny before, but now it can't be funny, because you want us to believe that we're attacking you, right? America is attacking Christians. No, you're allowed to be a Christian. You're allowed to be whatever you want. You just can't make everybody else be it. And that's what you're trying to do. That's the truth. That's been the truth, guys. It's reasonable, it's logical, it's provable, it's credible. I'm being fair and honest. I am taking everything that I see and hear, all perspectives, I'm putting them together, and I'm finding truth. You see, using reason and logic, trying to be fair. So, focus of the second part of Loonie Liberal Power Hour with your host, Lance Richards, today, in lieu of a post or a few memes or some discussions that I can have on Facebook, the only thing that I can do on YouTube is make a video. So, that's just what we'll do. And eventually, maybe I'll learn how to cut these videos down and put them out in little snippets. Who knows? Who knows what's next? You know, I got a month of YouTube, but I just can't. I don't have the time to make the videos like that. It's easier to just type it out. Make a Loonie Liberal Power Hour once a week. You know, it makes me feel better about myself, okay? There, I just said it. Makes me feel like I'm doing something useful, even if it's not. That's reasonable. That's as reasonable and as fair and as honest as I can be about it. I think if more people did it, we'd be in a better shape. I think that if we had discussions and we told people what we thought and we were honest and fair and thoughtful to what people are saying, the world would be a much better place. If we really, really, really lived by the words that we are saying. If we really stood up for integrity and had integrity. If we wanted everybody else to be fair, maybe we should be fair too. If we want everybody else to be honest, maybe we should be honest too. If we want to find the truth, maybe we should try harder to speak it. And I think that's reasonable. I think that's fair, right? Is it reasonable for us to hold guns? To have the right to defend ourselves and to feed our family if necessary? Yeah, that's reasonable. Is it reasonable for me to take my gun into the Capitol and try to take it over? No, it's not reasonable to do that. Is it reasonable for me to stand in somebody's yard and make them do what I want them to do with my gun? No, that's not reasonable. That's not within your right as a gun owner to use your gun to impose your will. That's not reasonable. Ever. You can use your gun to defend yourself. You can use your gun to get food for your family, but you cannot use your gun to impose your fucking will. That's not reasonable. That's what criminals do. You understand? That's when you become a domestic terrorist. That's when you become a criminal. When you use your gun to impose your will with a show of force. That's domestic terrorist shit. That's not peaceful protest. That's a show of force. You foolish fuck. Do you know the difference now? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I hope so. I hope that's fair to you, because that's fair to our society. That's fair to all people. You don't go around imposing your will with your weapons. That's what soldiers do. That's what the cops are supposed to do. And we hold them to higher standards for a reason. They have to follow rules of engagement. They have to be held accountable for the shit they do with their weapon. You don't, obviously. Do we understand ourselves now? That's why a lot of them people become cops and go into the military so they can impose their will. Well, we need to hold them motherfuckers accountable too. And that's fair, and that's reasonable, and that's logical. Because in our pursuit of perfection, we have to hold ourselves accountable for the shit that we do. And that's reasonable and fair and logical. You know who that's reasonable and fair to? For our children. Because we have to remain righteous so they can start off righteous. And that's our duty to America. That's our duty to this righteous notion. You were privileged to be born an American, and you should live up to that privilege. Be worthy of that privilege. Fight your ass off for those ideals. God damn it, man. You can't hate Muslims in America. You can't. Not on my watch. You can't hate Mexicans. You can't hate immigrants. You can't hate anybody in America. You're allowed to dislike them. You're allowed to, hey, man, I think you're wrong. You're allowed to as civilly converse as you possibly can and figure out and try to find common ground. You're allowed to oppose that. But you can't hate on them. You can't seek to put them under your thumb. You can't make them do what you want them to do. See the difference? See how that's reasonable? You can't bring out your guns and make people stop being Muslims. There's a bunch of Muslim congressmen in our Congress, and I'm going to bring my gun in and I'm going to get rid of them towel heads. That's what you motherfuckers sound like. To me, to reasonable, logical, thoughtful people like me. Honest and fair, at least try to be sometimes, if you guys will let us. I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you what I think. I'm just standing my ground for truth and logic and reason and being honest and being fair, being thoughtful. What have we done? We tried to give a bunch of people some health care. Tried to educate people. Oh my God, that's just the worst I've ever heard. Let's find a way to make education and health bad. How the fuck did that happen? Let's talk about it. I mean, seriously, let's just chuck it out there and discuss it, shall we? How did making sure people get what they need to stay alive become bad? How did educating people and filling people with knowledge and understanding and empowering people with education become bad? What world am I living in? When is knowledge bad? When is good health bad? Just doesn't make sense. It's just not common sense to me. You guys want to talk about your common sense? What makes you think that health's not good? Don't you want to be healthy? Yeah, everybody does. It's mutually beneficial to our society that everybody's healthy, that everybody's well educated, that people know shit. When did knowing shit become a bad thing? Shouldn't you endeavor to fill yourself with as much good knowledge and understanding as you possibly can? Is life really to you all about how much money you make and how much stuff you can get? How about how much stuff you can know and learn and understand and teach and give to the next generation? How about that? How about filling your cup full of knowledge and understanding and wisdom? When did that become a bad thing? When did we stop trusting experts? I mean, yeah, what do the scientists know, right? What's a biologist know about biology? I mean, really, how fucking stupid are these people? I mean, when we really get down to the nitty gritty here, which we are on YouTube, I suppose, because that's just what YouTube is, me unfiltered. I can't bring the right words out. The words just come out. So Lance uncensored on YouTube. Let's get down to it. What are you thinking? What are you really thinking? When did health become bad? When did knowledge become bad? When did being able to think become bad? Tell me. You just got to give it all up to Jesus, huh? Last time I checked, God helped those who help themselves, folks. And we help ourselves by being healthy. We help ourselves by being educated. We help ourselves by knowing shit. Don't we? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Get as good as we possibly can so we can instill that in others? So we can progress righteously towards perfection to try to get as good as we possibly can? Or is it all about how much stuff we can get? What's mine? How about what we can give to others? Doesn't that go along with humanity and love and truth and justice, perfection? The words that are coming out of your mouth, the deeds that you do, your actions. You probably should be more thoughtful to those too, be more fair and honest about them. This is the hard work that we have to do for each other. I think that's fair. I think that's honest. I think justice would be proud of us if we did this. Good and bad. You know what's good and what's bad, don't you? Being selfish is bad. Being ignorant and being proud of it is bad. Being self righteous is bad. Being hypocritical is bad. Hating people because of where they come from or the color of their skin or their financial means or what color their shirt is or if they wear a mask or it, if you want to hate somebody because they love the Steelers, you know? I mean, who loves the Steelers, right? In Ohio. You got all kinds of teams in Ohio to choose from. If you want to be a football, if you want, you got two football teams to choose from if you live in Ohio. But you got it, you pick Pittsburgh. I mean, if you live in West Virginia right across the river, okay, I understand because you don't got shit to choose from. So, okay, go ahead. You can have Pittsburgh. But you live in Ohio, motherfucker, and you love Pittsburgh. Now, that's a reason to hate somebody. And then buy them a beer and have a good time fighting about the game. But you don't hate somebody because where they come from. We're all Americans, motherfucker. You don't hate somebody because they're conservative or they're liberal or they're Republican or they're Democrat. That's not why you hate people. Hate people for petty reasons, just for fun. I don't know, guys. I just was compelled today and had the time. So we're halfway through the second Loonie Liberal Power Hour with your host, Lance Richards, now on YouTube because I'm in Facebook jail. And the theme has been reason because I feel that words are neglected. Meanings and understandings and applications of our notions they're being taken for granted, folks. You spew integrity and then you lack it. You say how you want everybody to have integrity and honor and uphold the oath of the Constitution, but yet you don't have integrity. Because if you did, you would stand up for your immigrant ancestors. You would stand up for your Mexican neighbors. You would stand up for that woman that needs help. You would stand up for that kid that needs educated. That person who needs something to stay alive. If you truly had integrity, that's the things you would be doing. Integrity means that you're willing to sacrifice of yourself to do what's right, to do what's fair, to do what's honest. That's what having integrity means. That you're willing to put upon yourself to do what's right. That's what it means to have integrity. So taking care of people is right. That's what's good. We know that. That's undeniable. That's why some words are good and some words are bad. Some deeds are good, some deeds are bad. Sometimes I just don't even know what to say because I get too thoughtful, I suppose. Got to reel my thoughtful back. and get back down to the nitty gritty. Because there's some people that need some help in this country, folks. There really are. These deplorables are going to be having like withdrawal. They're like addicts. They've been addicted to misinformation and all full of themselves, waving their Nazi and Confederate flags everywhere. And we got to be thoughtful to these guys, okay? Because they just got their dicks knocked in the dirt by truth and logic and reason and humanity and fairness and love and understanding and knowledge. I mean, we really are the good guys now. The good guys are back in charge. And all the bad guys, they're going to start feeling bad. Basically about being bad guys. So we're going to have to build them back up. We're going to have to take care of them. We're going to have to, wipe their butts and pamper them and, put the powder on them and, tuck them into bed nice. We have to bring them along slowly, I think, or else they might just throw too big of a fit. They might just, go off the deep end and go straight fucking toddler in the grocery store on us. You never know. They already did with the Capitol. Kyle did when he went out and shot some liberals. There's that one guy ran his car into a bunch of fucking liberal protesters. They've thrown their little baby in the fucking grocery store fits. They just get overlooked and they're heroes because they destroyed a bunch of people's lives for standing up for what they believed in. They're patriots for, being aggressive and trying to. They did kill people. They want to blame everybody else because, Kyle's a stupid fucking kid. And the guy with the horns still lives with mommy and needs organic food. Dude, honestly, the last 4 years would have been the best. If it was a TV show, I would laugh. But since it was real life, it was kind of not altogether always as funny as I would have wanted it to be at the time. But now looking back, it's just fucking hilarious. Some of the shit you guys believed. Really, it boggles my mind. I think that's what puts me in a peaceful place now, is that for now, truth is back in charge. Or at least some semblance of truth is back in charge. It's just, to this day, it still boggles my mind. How unreasonable some of the things that, like Pizzagate. Dude, some of the things that people have come to me and actually said, it just boggles my mind. People are in these crowds, these deplorable crowds. The signs are there. There's a person in there wearing something parade to Auschwitz or something. On their shirts, it's talking about how concentration camps didn't do enough. You got people with swastikas on their body, waving Nazi flags, waving Confederate flags. These are signs of bad things, folks. If these things are in the group of people that you are on the same team with, that should be a big red flag. Okay? That should smack you right in the face and say, whoa, 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 whoa. What the fuck are you guys doing on my side? Yeah, I mean, isn't that reasonable? Isn't that fair to say that, hey, man, if this motherfucker over here is waving a Nazi flag that symbolizes white supremacy and the Holocaust and some horrible shit, oh, look, he's got a shirt that says, I like the Holocaust. He's got a swastika on his arm. He's got white power across his chest. Yeah, but what are you doing on my side, motherfucker? Isn't that a reasonable question? What are you doing over here? Am I being unfair or dishonest in any way? I mean, is this unreasonable for me to assume that, yeah, the guy who likes Hitler is a bad fucking guy? The guy who waves a flag that symbolizes slavery and enslavement of an entire race for generations by this country is in our capital, storming our capital. That's okay to you? That's American? Do I need to give you a history lesson on the Confederacy? What went down between America and the Confederacy? That flag that just came, that people put on the back of their trucks and driving parades for Trump with, that didn't register, huh? These things, you don't see these things. You don't hear the rhetoric that's coming out of their mouths. You don't hear the words that they are saying. The people on your team, the people that are standing up with you. That's what that makes me do. You're on the same team with them. And this ain't like a football game or a basketball game where you can, yeah, okay, we're just going to win a championship. This is about humanity, folks. This is about America. This is about something that transcends all of us. This isn't about a sporting event. This isn't a game. This is life. People have to be held accountable for this bullshit when it comes to America. We can't tolerate ignorance being shoved down our throats, or misinformation, or things that aren't true. It just ain't reasonable, and ain't fair, and ain't logical, and ain't honest. And that's what you guys have been doing for 4 years. Now, sure, they sprinkle some truth in there. One of the best ones I think that I've came up with to help you understand it is how they sprinkle a little bit of truth in their conspiracy. They sprinkle a little bit of truth in their propaganda to hook you. There's always a little bit of truth in there, nuggets. But then it's saturated with a bunch of other bullshit to manipulate you and lead you where they want you to go. It starts with little nuggets like Obama's a Muslim terrorist. It starts with little nuggets like Benghazi, and frankly, Hillary's a bitch. Everybody knows Hillary's an elitist bitch, but she had to be to get where she was. She was a female in a male-dominated fucking arena. She had to be a bitch, and she is a bitch. But they took that nugget of truth and then they threw Benghazi on it and said she didn't give a shit about the fucking troops, which is bullshit. It's bullshit. They said the most qualified individual probably ever in the history of America couldn't be president because she didn't have a dick. Is that reasonable? Is that fair? Is that honest? Am I not being honest? She was the most experienced, credible individual. She did everything on all kinds of levels over multiple generations, well, decades. She was probably the most qualified individual to be the president of the United States that has ever lived. And that's the truth. Whether I liked what she did or what she stood for or how she operated, for the longest time, I'll be honest and fair with you, I had a little touch of misogyny for Hillary. I thought she was a Slick Willie coat rider. But the truth is that she did a lot for Slick Willie along the way. She was a powerful factor in his presidency. She was a senator. She was Secretary of State. She is a lawyer. She is a qualified and competent individual, regardless of what she has between her legs. I know that too now. But sometimes we tend to forget these things. How in the name of all that's holy did you think that a punk ass entitled rich boy, con man, grifter never succeeded at business? He's been living off his daddy's name his whole life. How did you ever think that he was going to be able to do American politics like Hillary Rodham Clinton? Politics is a different business. Civil duty, taking care of America is something that is unlike any other arena. Politics is something that does absolutely transcend us all. Politics is in everything. It's interwoven everywhere. It's something that is taken for granted, but is very essential. Politics is everywhere. Politics is at the bar. Politics is in the schools. Politics is in your living room, on your TV, on your radio, in your cars. Politics is everything. But it's also hard and taxing work. It's complex. It's oftentimes subjective, but needs to be objective. It's a dirty business. It's absolutely essential business. Society has to maintain itself. We have to have some sort of something that holds us accountable. Our forefathers gave us a great something. Us. Government of, for, and by the people. An entity, a power that we hold each other accountable. Okay? Nothing else holds us accountable but ourselves. So how do we best do that? By empowering each other. The more people we have that know stuff that are healthy, that can do good things for this society, the better off we are. Isn't that reasonable? Isn't that logical? Yeah, it is. But there's a lot of little human frailties at work too. People are selfish and greedy and don't want anybody else to get over on them. It's just a delicate balance. It's complex and delicate. It's strong and fragile. It's yin and yang. Well, we're down to about 10 more minutes of this Loonie Liberal Power Hour with your host, Lance Richards. And I have no expectations of these things, really. I have dreams and hopes, and of course, But there's never ever been expectations of what I would get from this. I always knew that I'd get shit more than anything because, I'm rattling cages and ruffling feathers, and who knows, I probably pissed off my fair share of people. So there's pros and cons to this whole thing. But one of the biggest things is posterity. If you feel something strong enough, you should say it. But you should be willing to compromise. You should be willing to see the error in your ways and take into account other perspectives. You must be willing to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes while at the same time protecting your shoes. It's a delicate balance. And our society counts on that delicate balance, you see. People talk about this two-party system and they want it gone. I don't think that's fair. Because it's not about parties. This is not a partisan issue. This is the balance between basic conservative and liberal ideals, thought processes. There has to be balance between conservative and liberal, almost as a rule. Now, of course, everybody's going to form their own factions and their own parties all along this spectrum between liberal and conservative. But there has to be that balance. There has to be conservative ideals pulling at liberal ideals and vice versa. There has to be that constant opposition to find truth, to create truth. This one needs to keep this one honest, and this one needs to keep this one honest. And we have to tug and pull until we get it where it needs to go. And it truly is a delicate balance because there's a lot of perspectives in there. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of frailties. There's a lot of strengths and weaknesses. There's a lot of factors. And if you think of our society like math, putting 2 and 2 together, you can't just use math to do it. There's all kinds of different disciplines that you come into account. Psychology, sociology, history, science, all these things come in, and we have to fit them together to form our more perfect union. And it's tough. It's a tough business. It's a hard business to find truth, folks. And we have to come back to terms with this. That life isn't as easy as everybody wants to think that it is. Because I'd like to think that life is easy, but I know it's not. It's not. Figuring out what's best for everyone is not easy. Figuring out the truth is not always easy. Emotions blind us. Preconceived notions blind us. What we think is true today may not be true tomorrow. In a lot of things. What we thought yesterday might not be what we think tomorrow. And we have to be open to that. But by the same token, we have to hold firmly to the things that we know are true. That's what conservatives do best. The problem is sometimes when they're holding on to something, it's not true. Or it's not true anymore. It's not true anymore that the earth is flat. It's not true anymore that women are inferior or black people are inferior. It's not true that America is better than everyone else. That's not true. So we need to start really applying these truths. We need to start really being thoughtful and honoring the good things that we hold dear in this society. We need to be fair to them. We need to be honest and thoughtful. We need to work our asses off to be as good as we can fucking possibly be. Until it hurts. And there's really no other answer other than that. You know, Sketchy earlier was asking me about what do we do? That's the answer. The answer is find the good in you and accentuate it. Try to help others find the good in themselves and accentuate it. And then we perpetuate all this good to the next generation. You want to be cynical. You want to, oh, it's never going to change. And politicians are this, and I hate that. And I'll fuck this and the whole wide world. And if you want to have a glass half empty, that's fine. Go over there and have your half empty glass while the rest of us fill up our cups and fill up everybody else's cup. And we'll probably throw some in your cup too. You see, that's how we build back better. That's how we get better, is making ourselves better, more righteous, more thoughtful, more honest, more fair, more knowledgeable, more understanding, more wise. These good things. Have integrity. Have charity. Be thoughtful and generous and kind and love each other. Do the good things that you know are good. Isn't that reasonable? Isn't that fair of me to say and ask of you? Isn't that fair of America to ask you? Isn't that fair of Jesus to ask you? To just be a good dude. Try to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. Try to form a more perfect union. The more truths that we find to be self-evident, the better off we will become. And the better off our children will become, and their children will become, and the whole rest of the world combined. Fingers crossed. We've got lofty goals here in America, folks. America is shooting for the stars. Kennedy, that was Kennedy's message. Shooting for the stars. We're always trying to get better here, not worse. We're not always trying to get what we want. We're not always trying to find people to hate and denying science and denying experts. We're not doing all that shit anymore, okay? We can't do that shit anymore. Sorry, deplorables, but we got to cut that shit out. We can't. Nope. Sorry. We can't do that bad stuff. Sorry. Now, it's about been an hour. No feedback this time, but that's okay. I don't need feedback, as you can well see. But I just wanted to say that I'm going to try to get a couple more videos in here while I'm in Facebook jail, because I think I need to at least try to be fair to YouTube and do my worst on YouTube also. while I'm, cast aside by Facebook unrighteously. I'll do my best for YouTube. No promises, just I'll try. Thank you for your time. I hope something caught on. If not, see how it goes. Have a good one. Be thoughtful, be honest, be kind, be fair. Dumbass out.